This is Jon Croft with Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft, and I'm Jon Croft. How's everybody doing? So, Rebecca's coming soon. We've got a show for you to talk about theoretical stuff tonight. Stuff that a lot of people would disagree with me on. I'm not going to drop too much on you, but there's some stuff in this episode that a lot of people are not going to agree with. And that's okay. That's okay. Like I said, this is theoretical stuff. We're here to challenge the norms, right? We're artists. Artists work in technology quite often. Hollywood is actually a technologically driven industry. And so high-tech stuff. People don't realize that. This is why Silicon Valley and Hollywood go together so well, right? Tech stuff. So, and artists have always been, involved with the latest tech ways of making their art. This is just how it's always been. So we're talking about distribution tonight. Distribution. Distribution is one of the pillars of Hollywood. It's what makes Hollywood work, along with marketing and along with their stars and artists, right? So, and then they have the media as well. So they have their stars and artists, which you could put in the same category, but I don't, because the artists often, or the talent, the stars often work with the marketing. So often they're like this middle ground between the marketing and the actual like craftsmanship of making a film. So and stars are like the bishops of a chess of a chess game. They're dynamic. They can do a lot. So you've got the stars and the artists. The artists are like the filmmakers and the craftsmen. You've got the marketing, you've got the distribution. The distribution used to be all about forewalling and used to be about theatrical stuff. So, you ever heard of the term Nickelodeon? Well, this was how Hollywood started. Hollywood started as almost like an arcade, right? You go into an arcade like in the 80s. These still exist, obviously, but they're not as popular, and they don't make nearly as much money as they did in the 80s. But there's these arcade games, the beginning of video games. You stick in a quarter, and you get a few minutes of playtime in one of these video games. And Nickelodeon was you stick in a Nickelodeon, and you watch a short movie. So this existed in the early 1900s, and it was in the big cities. They'd have Nickelodeons, but it wasn't very widespread. I mean, it didn't. But that's how Hollywood started. It was a little Nickelodeon outfit, and then eventually this gave way to the larger rooms. That's closer to theatrical, right? Which is you take these theaters and you turn them into feature film auditoriums, and they have air conditioning in there. Air conditioning was not widespread at the time in the early 1900s, and so people would enjoy going to a theater, getting some air conditioning and popcorn or whatever, and watching whatever movie happened to be playing. They didn't always check what movie was even playing. They just like going in there, for a few hours to cool off and get, watch something amazing they've never seen before. And it's quite a history, beautiful history there. But this is how theatrical started, and at the time also as the studios grew, they owned many of these these theaters for distribution. and eventually they had to be broken up because they became very powerful monopolistic forces. Was that an antitrust? I don't remember if it was an antitrust case, but it was basically they were being broken up. So the studios were separated then from theatrical, and now as a result, distribution is a bit interesting in Hollywood. So Hollywood, in a way, has this kind of antagonistic and yet win-win scenario quite often with the theaters, who are not allowed legally to I guess, agree in every case with these studios. So they're not allowed to form essentially to form a monopoly of sorts. And if these companies were to collaborate too strongly, then that would be perceived as a form of monopoly. So anyway, not to get too legalistic or legalese with you, but distribution is a unique bag in Hollywood, the history of Hollywood. And it's a powerful tool for stars to make money and for people to become famous and rich and all these things, because they're distributing and repeating this profit over and over and over and over and over. So similarly to how records were produced and pressed, and then a music star would be born, because you're repeating this same over and over and over and over. Before this was the prints for paintings, and before that were the prints for books. So in the 1800s, the famous artists were writers, right? So this was a new kind of medium. And 1700s, obviously, the printing press is full force, but this takes shape mostly as a political power, the printing press, and also as a religious power, so they can print the Bible, get it all around the world. And Wittenberg's printing press, right? So 1600s. It starts, and in the 1700s it's more political and religious, and the 1800s it becomes more of an art form, right? It's more of an art form now, the printing press, and also a writer can become rich and famous. Probably the most famous, I'm guessing, Mark Twain, people like this, in the late 1800s. These people are becoming very, very, they're the intelligentsia now of our societies, is these kinds of people. And then after this, right, and you also have kind of the remainders of the visual artists who were famous, and even back to the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. They couldn't reproduce all these works, neither did they want to. They wanted these works to be one of a kind paintings. Eventually, right, they had to succumb to the phenomenon of the printing press. They started selling prints. And this didn't turn out to be as much of a success. Why? Because the original paintings have texture. They have beauty, blood, sweat, and tears put on that canvas. Those are the valuable ones, right? These are the original ones. So, and then this same form of original print again raises its head in the form of digital files, right? Because you have digital files degrade, they reduce their quality, and they reduce their like with video files, right? You have resolution, and your resolution is way up here with your original files, and then they get exported, and they become smaller, and they become smaller files, so you can distribute them and send them out. It's easier to upload and download, etc. And so, but the original file, now that's right. So for a musician, that's called your masters. Like your masters are your best, the highest bit, like just the best version of your song. And so owning your masters as a musician is really great as a result. So, and you have the original back in the day, right? Early 1900s, even up to the 90s and 2000s, you have your original celluloid for filmmaking. So it's literally shot on celluloid. It's a physical thing. There's just beauty to that, right? It's almost like the originals of your painting as an artist. It's got that texture to it. It's got, depending on the kind of film that was used, there's grain to it that's really special. And so this is really an art form in these stages. And then it becomes, again, kind of like, how the printing press went from this beautiful thing, and then artists sell prints, but it just didn't have the same panache to it, right? It doesn't have that same artistic feel to it, so it's a lot cheaper, and today even more so, right? Because you could just snatch files off the internet, someone's picture, and so it's so easy to use and abuse, and so the quality is degraded, right? The experience is degraded. And this is, I think, is what Martin Scorsese thinks of as cinema, right? This is part of the cinematic experience for him. He grew up like 50s, 60s, 70s, and he's experiencing this cinematic experience where everything, the pop of the film, like the sound pops, and the grain and everything, and the imperfections of this seeming canvas, right, up there on the silver screen. And it's got this beauty to it that's almost indescribable, because each one of these prints are unique. Like there's no two the same. You watch the film in Chicago and it's different in LA. It's a different experience. I mean, it's not drastically different, but it's different in a kind of a beautiful way, So this kind of artistic experience is a unique experience. And for people like Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino and these people who love cinema as an experience, because it's really an experience, as most art is really an experience, right? Even if you're just looking at a painting in a museum, that by itself is like an experience. So, and this is why today you have these react videos, right? The great thing about those is it's not just silly, right? It's not just to watch someone react. It's the fact that the reason the react video is so important is because the first time you see something, there's a specialness to it. You are literally sharing that experience with your audience for the first time. And so, I've seen some of these react videos, and clearly that's not the first time they've seen it. They're just kind of like pretending to watch it for the first time, but they're watching it again. Why? Because they have prepared remarks. So it's like it's less authentic. But if you can really have an authentic reaction, or if you can authentically experience art, that's a beautiful moment, So as these pieces of art get copied and sent out through the internet, they become less and less special. They become less and less of an experience that is unique. The uniqueness of experiences is an important aspect of experiences. So, you wouldn't want, I know some of us don't think this is true, but you wouldn't want to watch a movie and have the exact same experience as someone else. You really wouldn't. That is a special thing when someone experiences it your way. And you're like both in agreement, right? But imagine the fact that someone is a unique person that you know. You might love someone or have a friend who you really admire, and the reason you admire them is not because they're like you, it's because they're different than you. They have a unique perspective that you admire. And so when you see their reaction and you hear their interpretation of a piece of art, it's really special for you. You really like that. And you want to learn from the friend and kind of see it the way they see it and walk a mile in their shoes. And so that's really special when you experience someone else's unique experience with art. So my point is about this is that distribution has gone down a strange trail of reducing its uniqueness, reducing its vibrancy because of the internet, because all these things are digital files that get copied virtually exactly, right? So unless you're reducing the quality of it, you're pretty much getting the same experience. So now we go to something like distribution, where it's an industry, right? It's part of this larger industry, and what it's about is it's about making those rich people like Mark Twain, these stars, creating these stars which can help market and perpetuate an industry, or your studio, or your business, or what have you. So this is a lot of, the power of Hollywood. This is a lot of what makes Hollywood such a driving force in society. So we're going to talk about how to remake distribution. And so that's why I said this is a theoretical discussion, because much of what I believe has never been tried and may never be tried. But that's okay. I still like to talk about these things anyway, and I know a lot of people would disagree with me, and that's fine. One thing should be noted, and that is that, as I've mentioned before, so I want to get this out of the way. I've mentioned this many times, but it bears repeating that theatrical is not bad. And we should note that Hollywood wants to do streaming and wants to move to streaming because it's a walled garden in which they can control all of the distribution of their IP. Are you there, Rebecca?
I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. I have a little cold, but
yeah, it's okay.
I'm doing much better.
You sound fine.
Thank you.
So I know this particular discussion might not be the most stimulating for you, so I understand if you don't have a lot to say.
Okay.
But if you do have honest questions about it, I appreciate them.
Okay.
So again, to reiterate, theatrical is not bad. It's a good form of distribution. In fact, as I've also mentioned before, I did research on this, on the theatrical model, because I love the theatrical model too, like these other filmmakers who love the cinematic experience. And so I really researched then, why is Hollywood dumping theatrical, since the theatrical model is so powerful as an art form. Because what's special about the cinematic theatrical experience is that it is more of an experience than say something like streaming. Number one, it's more of an experience. Now, why is it more of an experience? Because it's a communal experience with a community. You sit next to people in your community, you react for the first time authentically with all the people in that theater at the same time. So that's this communal experience. It's like, as they say, a hallucination is not shared among others, but if there is one, it's cinema. It's a hallucination in which you all share the same experience, and that's kind of special. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
So that's something we can have together with a community, And that's a lot of the reason these guys don't want to lose that experience, because it's such a special experience. If you, especially if you grow up with that experience, it's really cool.
Mm.
Obviously, it takes respect for that place. If everybody respects the theater and respects that place, it isn't making a bunch of noise and a bunch of hubbub about nothing, and you really are there to enjoy this story and the storytelling, then it's a great experience you can have with many other people. So it's almost like a loving, neighbor loving communal experience. I think that's pretty neat. Um,
I like that. It's like a shared dream that everybody has, because movies are kind of like that. They're like dreams.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of how I view that communal experience. It's pretty powerful.
That's cool.
So I think that's a lot of the reason people like Martin Scorsese. It kind of mourns the passing of cinema as an experience. Is that he longs for that communal experience that he had as a child, and there's no real reason why it can't happen again. We have everything we need to make that happen again. It's a problem in society, is what it is. And it's true we can't just solve problems in society, so easily. But it would be a wonderful experience to see that communal dream happen again. That would be really nice. And again, I've done the research on the numbers, and theatrical is actually the most profitable part of Hollywood. And
Wow.
what people don't understand. They believe it can't be the most profitable, and the reason is because Hollywood tells them it's not. And the reason Hollywood tells them it's not is because they want to go streaming.
Yeah.
And the reason they want to go streaming is so they can theoretically control the IP from cradle to grave. They never have to share their IP with anybody or pay out anybody else for that
Yeah.
IP. And I do think part of it, though, is to try to get rid of that communal experience. It's to
Oh.
keep people isolated and atomized in their homes, so they don't have a communal experience again. And that's because I believe evil exists in the world. A lot of people can't understand why anybody would want that, but I do. I do understand why people would want to bring misery into a community. So a lot of people just can't believe that, so they just choose not to believe it. But I think if you look around, you'll see that you'll start to see evil, like rearing its ugly head if you look. And again, you might experience that disbelief at first, but it's there. So yeah.
Yeah.
But so but the fact is, and I do want to set the record straight, that I'm not saying theatrical is always profitable or that it's always the best thing to do, because theatrical is a risky platform. Why? Because there are minimum costs associated with creating a DCP or a digital package, right? A digital cinema package to send out to theaters so that they can play it. And if you're not creating enough of them, then you're not creating enough of a profit to literally pay for that minimum amount you're putting into it. So in other words, you have to invest a certain amount, and this is thousands of dollars to do these DCPs, and then that means you're taking some risks, right? And so if you don't get like 5 people in each theater coming out, which is a small amount, but you'd be surprised. Like some movies get nobody coming out. It's kind of sad. But like they can't even pay for their DCP when that happens. So, and then the theater also takes off some money off the top of ticket sales. So, there's even more more people you have to get in the theater to pay for that
Oh.
DCP as a result.
So what is DCP again?
It's a digital cinema package thing that is like it's like buying a hard drive.
Okay.
And so what you do is you order it. You can order it through the internet. There's some companies that create DCPs, and it costs a few $1,000s. And I haven't priced it actually in a few years, like 5 or 6 years. So I don't know. It might have gone down, but I think it was like, I don't know, 4,000, something like that.
Wow.
So it's actually not that bad. But I was looking at stuff that was just like one of them. Like I was just looking at like the minimum costs to do it. So more realistically, it's probably more like in the 20s of thousands of dollars, like minimum to run like a little bit of a campaign, right? To actually do a theatrical campaign. So, and then the bigger ones are going to be even more than that. So, so this is just minimum costs. And so, and also again, like I said, and then theaters are going to take off a chunk of that money as well. And so this is a lot of the reason Hollywood wants to go streaming, is because they don't have to pay anything. They're paying for their server costs, right, for their website and for their app, and some designers and some, developers, and then you just buy their subscription, and then you buy the internet to your house. So it's like, they're just sitting there with a server, So theoretically, the streaming model should be far less risky, and they should be able to make far more profit. The truth is, what they've fallen into is this belief that they have to be like Netflix. And what Netflix did was started making money, and especially after they started making content, their own original content. And so they believed that it was the original content that Netflix created that meant they could also do streaming like Netflix. And so everybody who does streaming believes they need to have original content, which will draw in new subscribers, because you always have to draw in new subscribers to stay profitable, to stay lean and mean and healthy as a company. And the reason is because barely none of these companies make money. It's so weird. Like, it seems like the perfect model at first, but barely none of these companies make money. And that's, I think, a lot of the reason is because Netflix was literally around, I think, for like 15 years before they even made money. And they weren't even doing original content that time. They were sending out other people's IP through discs, through DVDs.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah.
they were raising money because they were the only people in town doing this. They were like a virtual monopoly. And
Yeah.
so this is why they have 15 years on everybody. And they weren't even doing original content, in order to get most of those subscribers. They were just a distribution of DVDs platform, physical DVDs. So a lot of people forget this. And I do remember, though, when Netflix first started playing movies online, I was really like, what? I was like,
Yeah.
I was kind of blown away. I was like, are you serious? They're just going to let you watch on their website?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was exciting.
Yeah, it was kind of mind-blowing. And they didn't have a lot of content, at first. And then they were like, we're just going to put all of our digital, our DVD content, make it digital. Of course, they didn't do all of it because they just had way too many DVDs. So I think they started the whole licensing thing where they would license certain movies to go digital. And then they started, I think pretty soon after that, they started doing original content. So, just people just forget, like Hollywood, a lot of Hollywood just forgets, like, if you want to be like Netflix, how are you going to get that 15 years to to reach profitability. How are you going to do something equivalent to that?
Yeah.
It's really on the back of physical DVDs,
Yeah.
that they did it. So, so yeah, so the caveat, right, on theatrical is that a filmmaker, a producer, a studio, when they're distributing their movie on theatrical, you have to understand that the best way to make your money work for you is actually to put a lot into marketing, to let everybody know your film is coming out theatrically, and then and hopefully this is a IP that has built-in audience. And if you have all these things in place, then your theatrical distribution will be highly effective. Highly effective. And this deals with the concept I've talked about before, which is shelf space. So you have people when you're dealing with marketing, right? Marketing can be very saturated quickly. So what you need is, what you're looking for is certain kinds of customers. And so you have to market to the places that those people are, with knowledge that if you saturate that market, you will win. You'll be the winner on top, because people can only take so much of this advertising in that niche marketplace. They're going to keep hearing about your movie. If they return to those same watering holes that their demographic returns to, they will know all about your movie. And so if that movie is marketed well, meaning this film is perfect for this viewer, and these viewers are understanding your message, then you'll get a lot of people in the theaters. And so that means you will not only easily pay for the money you're putting forward, it doesn't matter if your movie costs $250 million to make, you'll make that money back in spades. So, let's just look at it this way. If you made the movie for $5 million and you spent $5 million on marketing, that's pretty good, right? Let's just say there's a percentage of ticket sales that's going to scale up. That's going to scale nicely. So let's just say you spend $10 million, like I said, in that scenario, and let's say you make like a 500% profit. That's pretty good. A 500% profit. 100% profit is the same amount of money, 100% of that money made in profits. So you made 10 million then in profits, which means all those expenses were covered, and 10 million on top of that in profits. That's 100%. Let's say you made 500%. So that's 10 million times 5, right? So you made 50 million in profits. You spent 10 million, you made 50 million in profits. That's pretty great. Now you have 50 million in profits. But let's say that if you're going to scale that up, let's say you're scaling that up the same way for one of these blockbuster films, right? You spend 250 million in profits and you make 500% in profits. So now how much are you going to make? It's a lot of money. Okay. So if you're a company who makes 50 million, that's great. You can make 5 more pictures from that. Maybe 5 more pictures. But if you made like $1 billion, oh my goodness, that's enormous. That's a big difference compared to 50 million.
Yeah.
Right? So you can see then how this scalability really pays off. And I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1 scale ratio, but it's like, I don't remember that ratio now. But I do remember that with these blockbuster films that you might spend a lot of money in marketing and to make the film, but the amount of profits pay for that and more. So it's millions and millions and millions of dollars that you're getting. So often, in fact, these films are so profitable that a studio will make pictures on the side that they know are going to lose money because they don't care. They're making enough money on the few blockbusters they put out that they can literally put out 10 pictures that all lose money. Doesn't matter. They don't really care.
Wow.
In fact, sometimes they even do it on purpose because a studio is really a marketing force. It's less about the pictures and more about the marketing. And how do I know this? Because many of those pictures that they put out to lose money are put out for different reasons than to make money. And one of the reasons it is to serve as marketing for that actor. The actor literally invests money of their own money quite often into making. It's called, what is it called? A star vehicle or something. I don't remember.
Yeah,
But
vehicle.
it's like it's like they're really purchasing marketing for that actor.
Yeah.
So they're in like a rom-com or they're in some drama or something, or the actor is an actor. They want to act. They want to chew up scenery. So they literally are investing their own money just to play a part that they just find fun and interesting. It's gonna like really shoot up their star, right? And so
Yeah.
this becomes really not even about money. It becomes about the fame and it becomes about the marketability of this star. And studios often do this on purpose because they have other plans for this star. They want to groom this star maybe for some larger purpose, maybe to do a blockbuster with them later. And so if they work on their image with another film, like one of these, unbankable pictures that are just for marketing, right? Just to increase the profile of an actor, then maybe this will groom them to do something larger for the studio. So a lot of these things are less about money than you think. Or rather, right, it's still about money, but it's more of the long game. These guys think in different terms than you do, right? They think about how they can do something smaller that loses money, but its purpose was something else that you didn't think of. So these are all very interesting things, but what it spells out to mean is that Hollywood doesn't just think about the bottom line dollar, right? And they also aren't necessarily going to use all these things properly because it's a very complicated industry. So if you get some people in there that don't quite know what they're doing, they might lose the plot as it comes to how to use the theatrical model perfectly. I think that's kind of what's happened in many ways in Hollywood. Is they don't actually understand in a complicated way how to use these the star pictures and the IP pictures and the blockbusters and all these things properly, and so they've ended up, right, abusing the theatrical model for sake of their IP and for the sake of their streaming platforms. So again, I want to return to point number one, which is that theatrical is good, but you have to use it properly. So you use it you can use it, like I said, to make money in a blockbuster type picture with a strong built-in audience and strong marketing. That works quite well. Stuff like family films work well, animated films work well doing this. The traditional, more recent blockbuster ones we know, which is the superhero films, they work well doing this because of all of built-in IP. It's colorful, it's for families, etc. People love that. So, but there's other purposes, like I say, too. When you are a studio and you're putting out 20, 30 pictures a year, one of the big six, then you might put out a few pictures that aren't there to make money. They're there to benefit you in some other way. And that's okay too, but it's going to take you'd have to be one of these big studios for like one of these star films to make sense for you. That's just not going to make sense. Nevertheless, if you're starting out trying to make pictures and you're hoping that this indie picture is going to make it big and theatrical, well, take a risk. You never know. You know, if you have some good money behind you, you could end up at least breaking even, or making a little bit of a profit. You never know. And I think one of those things you can do when you look at like what's going on with Angel Studios, and I'll get into Angel Studios more coming up, but when you look at what Angel Studios has been doing, they've not been doing it like the way like Daily Wire is doing. Now, these are two like counterculture film movements basically, and I'm starting to think of them more as movements than anything else, because they're unique. They're both kind of unique platforms. But like, and I'll explain that more. But like the Daily Wire went the Netflix route, and the Angel went the traditional Hollywood route, which is more about theatrical. But Angel does both. Angel does some really unique things. And so I guess I can go into Angel a little bit now, because I do want to tackle why Angel's so special. Daily Wire, like I say, they're doing the Netflix model, and this model is actually fairly straightforward. Lore TV is kind of doing the same model, although they're dipping their toe into crowdfunding, right? But because they're only crowdfunding using kind of virtual currency, which are called loot, and it's only the $15 subscription fee, $14 subscription fee that you're paying every month that's being applied to that. So this is not traditional crowdfunding at all. This is just kind of like, it's almost more like a voting system, if anything. And so you're paying $14 to vote with virtual currency for your favorite crowd, like your favorite choice of unproduced project, of campaign. Like, so you're putting money towards a campaign to make a film, and the money you're paying them every month at Lore goes towards this particular campaign. So that's why if you look at Lore, they don't have that much content compared to, say, Angel. And the reason is because Angel opens the floodgates to the normal crowdfunding platform, which is to say, give us thousands of dollars if you want, or give us $100. We don't care. This is crowdfunding. This is like Kickstarter. So we tell you what we're going to do. You tell us how much you're willing to pay. And that's not how Lore is. Lore is like your subscription fee, and that's all you're paying. And that means, considering these budgets to make these projects, it's going to take Lore a lot longer. I mean, considerably longer to make one project than Angel Studios. And the problem with that is marketing. Now they have to, every time there's a new thing, they have to like say, oh, we've got this new thing on our platform. It's been 6 months, right? Like before they have a new thing. So I actually wrote an article on this about how Lore can improve their platform. But I think that they will have to do more of the Angel Studios route, in my view. And so let's get into Angel Studios. Angel Studios has done every new modern form of technology with distribution now that I can think of. And all of it has worked fairly well. And how can they do this? Well, because they're more of a tech platform. They have experience doing tech, and they also have experience doing marketing. And these are the two things you need, really, behind the scenes in Hollywood, and to be able to work with talented people. You know, like, so they're a tech platform in the sense that they used to be VidAngel. And so they got to know that world of development and stuff like this. Stuff I don't know anything about, like developing software and things like this. So this helps them with what? With their streaming platforms. Because streaming platforms are all basically that. And so they could make unique streaming platforms with, like, let's say a pay it forward option. Something like this. Or expressing interest in a campaign. All of this stuff becomes far easier for Angel to run because they have experience doing this kind of tech work. And then secondarily, as a marketing team, which they made some of the best commercials in the last 10 years, the Harmon brothers, so they have considerable experience doing marketing. So that means they understand the power of social media. They understand the power of putting out a key video that's going to build momentum and buzz for their project coming up. And they also allow for multiple stages of crowdfunding. So they've understood that crowdfunding can ramp up in a special way to where you're building up buzz. And they have multiple stages, like unlike the typical crowdfunding platform. So they kind of know what they're doing. It's true that some of these projects have taken a few years to get going. And that's pretty normal. But like, if you have a great success or two, you can really roll that into bigger success if you use it properly. So, I mean, I think that's basically what Angel has done fairly well. So, again, they've got the technology to do a crowdfunding platform. They know how to do a crowdfunding platform. They know how to do a streaming platform, right? So, how did they step it up even beyond that? Well, they have the guild, which is part of the crowdfunding platform. It's like a voting system. So this is one of the stages of their ramping up to release, or ramping up to production, or whatever they're doing next. And so that becomes part of that. And then you can express interest, and then you have the crowdfunding. They have multiple rounds of crowdfunding, of fundraising then. And through each of these, they have a live stream on, like, let's say YouTube or another social media platform. And that live stream is to tell you kind of the status of where their project is, and why you should invest, and what they're offering, what they're bringing to the table. They've also understood something really important, that if you're interested in filmmaking, you should know right off the bat. This is just one of the most important things to learn if you're trying to get a project out there, is that you want to put your best foot forward as a filmmaker and provide something that you've already made on your own dime. Like, don't try to just get funding for this picture. You just got a script and you have nothing else to show of your filmmaking ability but that. The truth is, Hollywood does not really appreciate that. Hollywood wants you to put your best foot forward and take risks, and then they might support you. Okay? As I've said before in previous episode, this can mean that they will just own you outright. Right? They'll just come in, you're on your last leg financially, you've taken a lot of risks, and your film has potential. Well, they might just buy your film and then give you nothing. Like, thanks for the film. Or they might come alongside you and be like, well, let's do this together. Provide you with, let's say, finishing funds, right? So a finishing funds is when your film is like almost done, but you can't go over the finish line, right? You're stuck. And so you need a few $1,000s or whatever it is. You get finishing funds from somebody. They push you over the line. This doesn't imply that they own your film, but they do get a portion of profits typically. So they're like an investor now. They're like one of your primary investors now. So that's fine. That's pretty typical. So what Angel is good at, I think, is all these stages of ramping up support for this project. But like I said, they understand this one important thing, which is that you need to come forward as a filmmaker with your own project, already having made a short movie typically, or a pilot for a show. And as you know, pilots in Hollywood, well, you might not know, but for pilots in Hollywood, it's the same deal. They want you to invest and finish the pilot with your first, which is often your first episode of your show, or your introductory episode in a way. They want you to invest in that, and then there's pilot season in Hollywood, and people want to see all these pilots, and if they get good ones, then they will pay you for that pilot and to make the rest of the season. So that's kind of how Angel's doing things, but they call it a torch, right? And so I don't want to necessarily get into the history of why they call it a torch, but it is a really cool story, actually. It's a really cool story on why they call it a torch. But the torch is your first, what's called proof of concept. And it's not just a typical short. It's a smaller idea of a larger film, right? So it's kind of like a microcosm of this larger macro film. And so it's it shows like the true spirit and tone of this larger project, but it's in smaller form. So that's what your torch is supposed to be. It's to give the vibe of your film, introduce you to the characters in the world. No surprises by the time you get to the big picture, right? It's this nice encapsulated nut of this larger plant you're going to get if you grow that thing. That's called a proof of concept. So if you're at Angel Studios, or if you want to work with Angel Studios and you're a filmmaker, right, this becomes fairly simple for you. Make the best torch you can and submit it to the Angel crowdfunding platform, and then the guild votes on it. The guild votes, is this good? And their rule for this is, does it amplify light? As in, does it benefit society in some way, right? So that's one of their really important ways of ramping up support for a project, is Angel Studios says, does this help society in some way? And I think that's really great that they start out with that premise, that this should at least help society in some way. It's not just about entertainment, right? It's also about loving your neighbor and benefiting society in some way. I think that's great. And then number two, once you get there and you've been submitted and you've made a good torch, then what they do is they start looking for interest from the public, from the crowdfunding bodies of people out there that, if you're subscribed to Angel on YouTube, you're one of these people. You're going to see what's coming down the aisle, right? Or if you go to their site or whatever, they have projects that are seeking interest, right? And so if you put your name in there, it's gonna add up, and then this tells them when to go to the next stage, which is actually raising money. And so it's like any other crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter. It looks like that then at that point, where you're basically like willing to invest a certain amount of money. You're willing to sign your name on the dotted line and say, this involves risk. I might not get any of this money back, etc. But I believe in this project, like any Kickstarting platform or any Indiegogo or whatever it is. That's how it works. You're an investor. And so, but because you are one of many, many investors, you don't have a controlling stake in this picture. And that's kind of how crowdfunding works. That's the main basic idea. You become one of many supporting this idea, supporting this project coming into the world. And so instead of having a controlling stake like a producer or like an investor in Hollywood would have, what you get instead is you're saying, I want what you promise you're going to give us. You promise you're going to give us this, but your torch said you're going to make, and I believe you, and so that's why I'm investing in you. And that's pretty much it. And so then that's what the filmmaker has to fulfill. They have to create what they said they're going to create when you pay them. And Angel's kind of like the guarantor of that arrangement. So they guarantee that's going to happen. And that's why they take some off the top of this whole process. So I think that's fair, you know. And they're also participating in the marketing and all this other stuff. So that's good. And as a result, they've ended up making far more than someone like Daily Wire or Lore TV. And they're making not only more stuff, but high quality stuff. Stuff that, as they say, amplifies light. So now they reach to the next level, right? So the next level after this, which is that Angel's done, which is to raise money for like The Chosen, right? This is their first big success. They had some success doing comedy stuff, and then they had success doing The Chosen. The Chosen was really their success. Why? Because a lot of people gave money to it, and then a lot of people watched, you know. And so this kind of success eventually led to them even releasing The Chosen theatrically, in a theatrical run, where they made a few $1,000,000. And then this is just increasing the profile of Angel Studios and letting people know what they can do. And so now they're going to make more. They end up making more. It's been like almost doubling every year with what they're making. So they're making a lot more now. They're doing like 4 or so theatrical releases every year, I think. Maybe 5. Possum Trot is out in theaters right now. Sound of Hope. And so the people are saying great things about these films. And so my point here is theatrical is not dead. Why? Because people like Angel Studios, they've just pressed into theatrical while Hollywood is receding from theatrical and kind of bad-mouthing it a little bit and saying, I don't need theatrical, whatever. Well, I think Angel sees the numbers and they know, well, if you don't want it, that's fine. We'll take it. We'll take the money on the table. You leave it on the table. That's fine with us. So I think that was a smart move. And I think that other people like Angel can rise up and do something similar if they really try. And so I think that's really changing things. The Chosen did something smart as well, which is to make their mission to just become ubiquitous. And there's something really special about that philosophy with distribution, because typically what you'll see in distribution is people are like, well, I want to make a certain amount of profit per every unit that I'm sending out there. And if I can do that, then it pays for my distribution campaign. And now I'm making a good amount of money, right? I can estimate how much I'm going to make. I can really make a campaign that's going to be successful. I can make it all happen, right? If I can get these numbers down, I can do that. But there's a new kind of idea happening now in the world since the internet happened. And that's the idea of ubiquity, distribution ubiquity. And where does this idea come from? Well, it comes from Napster and places like this, peer-to-peer networks, in which viral success occurs through ubiquity, right? It's not about each video you send out makes them money. No. What it does is give them incredible fame very quickly. And then because your name is out there and because people have your freely downloaded thing and you're ubiquitous, now they might go to your channel, or they might find out who you are, or they might pay for your merchandise or order your thing through the mail or whatever it is after that, right? So if your name is ubiquitous, then, and if you've made something compelling or interesting in some way, then let's just say, sure, you know, you're not doing a sales campaign necessarily, so the percentage of return you're getting is smaller, but the amount of people you're reaching is so large, right? This is like millions and millions of people. So even 1% of those millions and millions of people is going to render you some profit. And this is a lot of the reason people do this is because, well, like I said, the internet, right? But also because Hollywood controlled so much distribution. What filmmakers, and I know this as a filmmaker, a lot of filmmakers, when I went to the American film market, they said, well, if I can't get normal distribution through Hollywood, if I can't sell my territories, and if I can't do a theatrical campaign, or if I can't do this and that, right, I might end up just sending my film out for free on torrenting networks, on peer-to-peer networks. Just send it out for free. And one thing you'll find is, because you're not putting that file in people's computers, what you're doing is putting them on the network and then seeing how many people download it. And depending on how many people download it, which they'll get for free, it could indicate that this product is a good product. It could say something, right? And also people are getting to see your film. So if filmmakers want to be seen and heard, if you can't do it in through Hollywood, the normal channels, then a lot of people believe just send it out to be pirated. And so that's a peer-to-peer network thing. And that actually goes into the potential theories I have on future distribution. I'm a believer partly in that platform. And a lot of the reason is that peer-to-peer networks can't really be controlled as easily as like Hollywood's distribution platforms. So because they can't be controlled, this kind of distribution ubiquity can be a good way to go around Hollywood. And the truth is, there's people who have even made profits doing this, not just getting their name out there, but profits because they would say in their file or in the product that they've sent out, they would say, send $1 to this Bitcoin address or something if you want to pay for this product or movie or whatever it is. And so they could get a few donations. So it's basically you're collecting donations at that point. And or maybe you're putting a URL on a site up on your product, and then people are going to your site. So there's other ways to monetize this product if you do a ubiquitous distribution idea. And so this goes into some of my theories, but I'm a believer that the streaming model, the subscription streaming model specifically, is going to become outdated. And the reason is because there's too many competing and they're not actually becoming profitable. And that's really the clincher, is the profitability factor is not there. The competition is high. The profitability is low. And so you might do better as an individual filmmaker doing that on your Substack than you'd be profitable on, like, I don't know, some other streaming platform like CW or something. I don't know. You might do better doing that. But VOD with advertising. What is that called? Oh, there's a name for it. It's the kind with advertising. That kind, is it AVOD? I don't know. Advertising VOD? That kind.
Sorry, I don't know.
That's okay. That kind is becoming successful because advertising is a at least if you have advertising on the film in the film like you did back with traditional TV, at least advertising pays, right? And it could pay more than a subscription fee. So a lot of these advertising platforms like Tubi, people are just putting their film up on Tubi, and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to pay anybody. They don't have to be paid necessarily. But they're getting their name out there and their face out there and their film out there. And so that's an alternative that people, filmmakers used to go Amazon. If they just wanted to get their film out there, they would just upload it on Amazon. And I don't think that they're making that as easy now. So something like Tubi, I think, became the next alternative to like Amazon. And I know filmmakers who have done that, who put their stuff up on Tubi and they get views, and they have even been paid a little bit from Tubi. So these are growing platforms that could supersede subscription VOD. Because subscription, I mean, you have 5 of those subscription platforms or 8 of them, and you're paying a lot of money per month. So those small amounts really add up. And I think people don't want all the extra expense, It's like how cable used to be. With all the extra channels you didn't want, all the extra content you didn't need, people will just cut their cable. So I think subscription might be going the way of cable, where they have bundles, and and then eventually it would just be a few platforms possibly, and it's like the original. It's like 4 channels on TV by that time. So this is not going to ensure that you have better content. That's going to make your content probably worse even. The more centralized things become. So I foresee that advertising VOD would make more sense in the future. But also I believe in the theatrical. I believe in four-walling. And I think it might even become easier for indie filmmakers to four-wall, considering how things have gone so digital. And I think that you could do it without the DCP now. I don't know. I need to look into that. But I heard from someone that there's a place, I don't remember who it is. Maybe it's that one theater chain that you can get food at. Oh, what is it? I don't remember. But I'm hearing it's becoming possible to distribute theatrically without DCPs. So I could be wrong about that. I'll have to check into that. But let me check my what I'm doing here, because I had some notes. And okay, so theatrical is not bad, but it's good. It requires effective marketing. It requires potentially four-walling and going independent from Hollywood. So that's one of the things I believe, is that if we want to kind of like go around Hollywood, possibly even defeat Hollywood, and do independent distribution, we're going to need to do our own four-walling. And we're going to have to try to work outside of Hollywood entirely. So don't work with a Hollywood producer. Don't work with Hollywood investment funds. Don't work with Hollywood marketing or with Hollywood distribution. And if you can do that, that's pretty impressive. I think that's pretty great. I'd say do as The Chosen did, which is to work towards ubiquity. That's at least one strategy, is to work towards ubiquity. And with ubiquity, you'll get a larger number of people coming to your stuff, whether it's a website or whatever it is. And then if you have other things that they can purchase, which The Chosen has always had some merchandise, for example, and most of these pictures that go through Angel Studios also do merchandising. This is a powerful model that can help you continue to make films. So, you know, peer-to-peer torrented stuff is part of that, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the case. You know, what The Chosen did is they offered licensing deals to people like CW and Peacock, and I think they did it for fairly cheap. I think that they didn't ask them to pay very much because they were aiming towards ubiquity, and that's the mission of the Come and See organization, the foundation that helps The Chosen get funding. Is that their idea is ubiquity, so they're sending these things out for less money, and so that's great. So yeah, my belief is that we need other platforms like Angel that will be crowdfunding platforms that also have a mission like Angel, and they also know how to do marketing. And they do this marketing with live streaming on YouTube and social media, and they do it in a quality way, and they're releasing trailers and other things. They understand the release windows and all this stuff and how to market a feature film and market a show. And so, you know, if people kind of like, people can follow this model that Angel is creating, you never know what we could do outside of Hollywood. Because a lot of the reason I'm talking about this subject is because I believe that a new film movement can happen and is in the process of happening. And I call it Conwave, but you don't have to call it Conwave. But it's basically a new film movement. And it's about doing something outside of Hollywood. So a new aesthetic, right? A new film movement. And in
I
order,
like that. Conwave. That's awesome.
well, you know, I like it. Yeah, it's a black and white film movement that deals with the modern issues that we care about. Often small stories, and they have traditional values in them. So.
Yeah.
You know, they're more relatable as a result to the regular American and just the regular good conservative person who's just trying to live and work and have a family and, you know, go to church and all the good normal things we like to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that this movement is going to speak to them. It's like, you know, it's like, what is that, like cottagecore? You know, it's these things that can, you know, people at first think are silly, and then they see them and they're like, oh, that's actually really charming. You know,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, why would people not like this just because it represents some traditional values? There's not enough reason to not like it. You know, like, it's charming and it's interesting and it's like, well, you know, why not have something a little bit more traditional in your life? You know, so,
Yeah.
you know, these things that contain traditional values can often have more richness and more depth to them that we don't, that at first when you're a kid like you, that you didn't really regard as that important, and then later on you realized, oh, well, if I want to have a good life, you know, not just do some fun things with my life, but have a good life, you know, what do I really need to do? And I need to find out what these values mean and kind of like explore into this subject more. And so this kind of film movement is kind of like something that we need because Hollywood doesn't talk about this stuff anymore. Like, they don't have a diversity of ideas in Hollywood as much anymore. So they're not like serving diverse communities. They're not serving like traditional communities. They're just on the like fringes of these ideological beliefs they're talking about. And so like these movements have to happen so that people can feel like they're part of something. And this is why I've talked about in the past the French New Wave and how Conwave can kind of emulate the French New Wave, because the French New Wave was dealing with the same kind of stuff we're dealing with now. It was post-war, right? Post some kind of traumatic experience. And they needed films and art that spoke to their particular challenges and to their particular hurt and their particular trauma that they're dealing with. And as I've stated, culture is a healer. And so we need these healers in our life to kind of like help us recover from the damage or from the trauma we've been through in life, or just the new experience. You have to process new experiences, you know? And so something like, let's say 2020, or like World War II back in the day with the French New Wave, people are going to they have experiences that they need to process somehow. And so something like music and film and all these forms of art can help you to do that. Or even just a book, reading a good book about the subject, you know, or about something that's beautiful and artistic and powerful and meaningful, can really kind of help you deal with a lot of these subjects. And so that's where a new film movement comes in. It helps people deal with the way they're thinking about all these things. And if it's a good piece of art, or it's made by kind of a unique thinker, then that could even represent a filter in society. And that filter could, if it's well made, can help you filter out and deal with some of the experiences you've had in the past in a very powerful, helpful way. Right? To where it actually helps heal you in a way. It helps heal your mind. Like everything's okay. Right? Like this person went through this difficult thing in this film. If they can do that, then I can do what I'm doing. I can survive with what I'm dealing with. And so these forms of art are part of this kind of like healing process when we go through something as a culture. So if you want to learn more about the French New Wave, I would look that up, like on Wikipedia, and there's plenty in there that if you notice it, that correlates with our time now. Right? They returned to black and white. They could shoot on the street with very, very small amount of money and a small crew. They didn't need that many lights even. They often did sound. They often synced sound later after they shot it, which leads to these kind of like meandering kind of musical movies that don't have a lot of dialogue. And so like the challenges that they were dealing with went into the style of what they were making, and it became even more insular and interesting and like personal, which was again played into what they were dealing with at the time. So we can take all these lessons and learn from them and apply them to this new film movement. And then with this film movement, what we can do is, instead of thinking about things the way Hollywood does, which is about popularity and money and the marketing, we can think about things in terms of reaching our audience, right? So that's kind of like more in line with a subscription model, in the sense of we want people who are fans, right? Because I know I've talked about the streaming model, I've talked about theatrical, I've talked about Angel Studios, I've talked about advertising VOD, stuff like this. Well, what about reaching a super fan, right? Like the guy who is in charge of Patreon talks about this. He talks about how really the future of all these things are the super fan, and how we need to dig in instead of like get a wider swath of people coming in to see our content. It's more about digging into those super fans who are really interested in everything we're doing. And so this delves into the YouTube personality and the influencer and all of this. These are new forms of distribution, essentially. So this is one thing we're forgetting. And this is why I mention Angel Studios so much, because you look at the Daily Wire, and they hardly do any of this. The way they do it is political influencers. And so they put out a daily show where they talk about politics. But this isn't anything about entertainment and marketing and influencer stuff. They just think that because they are internet talking heads, and they're doing a daily show, and they've considered the algorithm, and they do advertising on social media, this is enough. And I think that they've missed the point of much of what YouTube does and how modern marketing works. It doesn't work that way anymore with what they're trying to do. It works in a way that's personal and intimate, where you're dealing with super fans, right? And so what you want to do is dig in and appeal to those particular people who will show up on a super chat and be like, hey, I really like this and I like that, and let's joke about it, right? And so this is kind of where the future is headed, right? Is these kinds of things. And there's ubiquity, there's substitutions for theatrical, which I'll get into in a second. There's a subscription model, which I believe is going out. There's advertising VOD, which, to me is kind of like a return to old television, which was free and just keep it on and whatever. But in order to really, as an artist, be more than just seen somewhere, you need to think about this YouTube model with the superfan, and where you've got, like, to me, that's where subscription VOD really shines, is that it's part of the superfan idea, right? But I think it just kind of plays into it's like a subset of that superfan, because the superfan does more than just subscription. They want to do meetups, they want to do all kinds of things. And so that's why I mentioned Angel Studios, because Angel Studios understands the marketing to such a degree that I think they're starting to go in this direction as well. I could be wrong, but I think that when you are raising kind of like the profile of your project as you're crowdfunding for it, you kind of want more for your contributors to do, more to involve them in. And so I've seen this, for example, at Gabriel and the Guardians, for example. They had a little meetup where they met up at like a convention, and they just put it out there and said, we're going to be at this convention. I think it was like Austin or something, and some people showed up for them, and they got to put that into their next live stream video. So these kinds of things are, I'd say keep an eye on this model, because a lot could happen there with the superfan model. I guess that's just what you could call it. It's the superfan model. But there's a lot of possibilities here, right? And I keep returning to Angel, because Angel is doing multiple things here, and they're having lots of success as a result. And so that's why I encourage people to keep an eye on what Angel's doing, because it's pretty groundbreaking in many ways. But I mean, I was gonna, I've talked a little bit theoretically, but there's other things, there's other theories I have about the ubiquity model, and about kind of the Angel model of how they're doing what they're doing, that goes into my theories on the future of distribution. And I can't tell you everything about it because some of it is like too revealing. But, and a lot of it I can't even explain. It's just a theory. But like my belief is that what you want is two different things, and that is one thing to supplement and replace the current theatrical model to make theaters again appealing to audiences. And it isn't like changing the seats or improving the popcorn or all that stuff. That stuff is just very surface level. No, it has to change the model to such a degree that it really encourages people to come out to see this new thing, this newfangled thing, to watch some content, or to watch the latest film or something. And so that's number one. And let me just say, this is built around a peer-to-peer network. So I will tell you that. But it's peer-to-peer. It's like the interplanetary file system. You can look it up. It's IPFS. Something like this can help make theatrical work better. I'm just going to give you that hint. Okay, that's number one. And number two, what you need next is a ubiquity model. That's what I was mentioning with The Chosen and with torrenting, so that everybody can get your film. And there's never a problem with getting your film. And it's so easy to get, you don't have to do torrenting or any of that stuff, and you don't have to risk viruses and all this junk. I already know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. There's a way, nobody can stop it. There's no way Hollywood could stop this model, right? Piracy could be seen as very illegal. It violates international laws, all these things. And I agree with that. I don't think that that's a good idea. This is why we need a new model in which it's a distribution platform that nobody can stop and anybody can get it. And I already know what it is. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. And it'll blow your, once you find out what this is, it's going to blow your mind. You're going to be like, what? Are you see this? It was right in front of our noses and we never saw it. Never. So, guys.
You're not going to tell us?
No, I'm not going to tell you. As soon as I say it, you'll be like, oh, I'm going to do that immediately. Like if you're like Angel Studios, they're going to be like, no, we're going to monopolize this. It's the best thing ever. It's so great. And I don't even think I've told you what it is.
No.
Yeah, it's mind-blowingly cool. Like it's really cool. And you know me, you know I love to come up with new ideas. This is just it's so easy. It's just so like it's right there, you know. And so this is like I said, this is the distribution ubiquity model. This is the idea of being able to get a movie anytime, any place, anywhere, like, you know. And so, you know, and it's easy, and you could watch it on your TV, you could watch it on your phone, you could watch it anywhere. So, like, I just think that's the coolest thing. Like, if you can do that, if you can accomplish that, because you need both. Why do you need both of these kinds of new distribution platforms? Because one, it's for people that are like, people are willing to pay a lot of money for this. It's the latest thing. You know, they want it really good. And then you have the other one, like it's like retail, right? There's, you know, in marketing, right? You have retail, you have wholesale. Wholesale's like the cheap thing. You know, it's not necessarily that much better quality than something else on the shelf. You just need it. It's like a staple food. And so it's wholesale. It's cheap and available, readily available. That's the ubiquity model, right? That's ubiquity. And then the other one is more rare, more expensive, a quality experience. And that's why I say it has to replace theatrical, because that's exactly what theatrical is. It's a quality, it's all about experience, the experience of watching it in a crowded theater, if you can do it. And the other one is ubiquitous. So a filmmaker needs both of these, because when they're starting out, they need ubiquity, and when they're making money and they've become a household name, then they need the rarity, right, where they're charging more money, and it's all about the experience. And so you need both of these platforms. You might even need one in the middle at some point, and that to me is like something like the advertising VOD or something. It's like people are willing to watch it out of their busy day, but it's like it's got a commercial in the middle of it, right? It's not as much about the experience as it is about having that movie, you know, and that movie maker could make a little bit of money, etc. So that could be the middle platform, but it's a little bit in the air there. But again, guys, it's possible to do this. The future is still happening, and a lot of this technology is growing. Like I mentioned, the interplanetary file system. That's new stuff. This is new technology that's only been around like 5, not even 10 years. And that stuff's advanced peer-to-peer file transfer systems. So because it's advanced, you can do movies and any other large files and stuff like that, and it cannot be stopped. It's peer-to-peer, and like it's just available online. I think the Opera browser uses IPFS, so if you know Linux and stuff, you can do that pretty easily. But I'm not saying you're going to get IPFS right now. No, I'm saying that these are foundation stones to a possible future distribution system. Hollywood cannot stop, and if you wanted to make a new film movement using some of this new technology, you could possibly do it, right? And nobody could stop you. So, you know, these are important things to consider for the future. And if you're an artist anyway, you like this technology, you want to explore some of this new technology, and you want to see if possibly you could be part of changing the future of distribution, filmmaking, and art. You know, so I think that's powerful. So remaking film distribution, obviously a lot of this goes into distribution of other art, but I mean theatrical is theatrical, right? You're going to get movies. And so we have to consider that some of the most expensive art forms are also some of the most profitable. And so we still believe in films. Gaming is also the future. And so there's a lot of things to consider here when you're talking about culture and remaking culture. And, you know, there are possibilities here, folks. And we believe in the future. We believe in the possibilities of the future. So that's why we're keeping an eye on all this stuff for you guys. So you know that there is hope for the future. We don't have to buy Netflix, and we don't have to buy Disney Plus and all this terrible content that is rotting your children's brains out. It's not good for you. You need something more like cottagecore for movies. Come on, people. You know, like reform your life. You know, like do something that's good and beneficial. Do like Angel Studios, right? Be like, does this amplify light? Ask yourself, is this good for you, right? Or is this just playing into the same nonsense Hollywood is dishing out, the same yuck garbage, you know, with all these ideologies that aren't really beneficial to... We're finding out so many of these ideologies are self-destructive, not good for mankind. You know? So, you know, not to play into a lot of these fears, but it's like some of us just want to have a better life. And after you have kids, these things will change you. Like I know it changed us, didn't it, honey?
Oh
When we
yeah,
started having kids, it changed. Like we even went through ups and downs with like horror films. Like I can't watch horror films anymore.
yeah,
And for a while, I was like, no, I can watch horror films. And now I'm like back to like, no, I'm not going to watch horror films. Like, why would I do that to myself?
yeah.
And I think you've remained now like anti horror film now.
Just
It's fine.
yeah.
You
I
know,
just don't
like,
get that much out of it
yeah,
anymore.
exactly. It's like what I used to think I wanted to do and get something out of, thrills and chills or whatever. Like now I'm just
Yeah,
not seeing the usefulness of that anymore. And now I'm trying to like make the world a better place and hug my children and teach them good stuff. I can make sure they're like we homeschool, so it's like these are things we really care about. Like we're thinking about every day, like what am I going to teach my children today? And we were
yeah,
talking about homeschool curriculum today and all this stuff. We have to make all these decisions now.
yeah,
I would want it no other way. I would never want it any other way. It's the best thing ever. Like
yeah,
I love all of it, and I love watching my kids. Like I have an autistic boy, and he's just learning so many cool things now. Like he's got some bravery now. He's doing a lot of things
yeah.
that were hard for him last week. Like it's just exciting.
He's,
So
he's blowing our minds.
make the world a better place, people. You know, and so that's what we're trying to do. We want to help artists to make a difference, and so we want to let you know that you can change the future of film distribution if we work together. We do something new, and it's possible. All right, guys. Um, was there any last thought you had, honey?
I'm just impressed. There was a lot of information, and that was great.
Thank you. I
That
wasn't
was
even
awesome.
sure. I wasn't sure if it was going to make any sense because some of that's kind of like, some people might not care, but
Yeah,
that's
that
fine.
was interesting. Yeah,
Cool. Good. I'm glad it was useful.
yeah.
So where can people find you?
You can find me at Jesus Loves Rebecca on Instagram and Rebecca Loves Jesus on YouTube. And I just started a Substack.
Yes,
And
Substack.
yeah, I'm pretty excited about Substack. As you know, Trithia Films, I don't know if John has mentioned Trithia Films, he's got a Substack for his film company.
Thank you for mentioning
And
that.
yes, you can follow him on his Trithia page. And I'm just Rebecca Croft on Substack.
Yes, Trithia is Trythia film.
Yes,
Trithiafilm .substack.com. And
yes.
Rebecca is at what is it on
Yeah,
Substack again?
it's just my name. It's just Rebecca Croft.
RebeccaCroft.substack.com. And you're also at I think When We Love Jesus and Jesus Loves Rebecca and Rebecca Loves Jesus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Just clear that up. And I'm at John Edward Croft on various places like X. And I'm at The Media Moses, and I'm at Culture Warfare with Jon Croft. So
Yay.
you can look for me those places. And like she said, I'm on trithiafilm.com or trithiafilm.substack.com. And I'm at mediamoses.com. Stand up for the
Yes.
culture. All right. Love you guys. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.